everyone, and welcome to another live demo with Etcher Studio. I am here today with Renee Walden.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
And we are going to be hosting you a demo today on painting landscapes with watercolor, and I'm super excited for this one. This is going to be amazing. Now, if you can hear us, please go ahead and text llama on that chat box so I can make sure that we are connected and everything is good and flowing. Hello, everyone. I can hear myself. Okay, we are live. That's great. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. I am super excited to be here with you today. Just a few reminders before we start. Go ahead and please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified of every new demo. And also subscribe to our email newsletter and make sure that you whitelist our address so it doesn't get sent to spam. Now, grab today's Grab today's link to the demo so you can share it with your friends and more people can join us. Please fill in the live demo survey when I pop it into the chat so we can make sure to bring you the best content all the time. Now, if you have any question for Renee, please write the word question all in caps in the chat and then write your question normally. This just helps me scan the chat quickly and grab your questions and ask them to Renee if it makes sense on whatever she's working on at the moment, or I will save it for the Q&A portion at the end. Now, today we have a 1 hour time limit, but before we start, I wanted to ask you, Renee, if you could please give us a little tour of your sketchbook.
Oh, yes, sure.
Awesome.
Well, I have many sketchbooks. I'm quite a sketchbook addict, if you followed me at all. This is one from last year, and I actually started this one in lockdown. And so it starts with just things that are from close to home. And then I slowly get further and further away. And my sketchbooks have, anything in them. Oh, let me move it across here. Anything that appeals to me. My bunny, those are bunnies in my garden. My neighbor's caravan, the view down at the lake. It was autumn time.
Wow.
My neighbor's quinces. Lockdown, view from the window.
What?
So these are just all little scenes from around here. My main focus is with painting outside, so I go through a lot of sketchbooks capturing scenes from close to my home.
And this is all watercolor?
So it's all watercolor with ink on top. So I start with a pencil sketch, then I do the watercolor, and then I do ink on top. And I really like to write a little story of, where, things that I remember from the day. Oh, my pooch. Yeah, this one's really close to home. And then we came out of lockdown and I could actually go to the sea.
Yeah.
A little bit further away from home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So this is these are these little sketchbooks, A5 size. I carry one everywhere, and I'm always set up for painting outside. So everything's always packed and ready to go.
Yeah.
And I sketch outside a lot, like all the time.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it just gives us a really great sense of all the amazing work you do as an artist.
Thank you.
Now,
so that's a perfect sketchbook from Etcher. That's the A5 size, and I'm going to be working in a A4 size today. So same book.
Awesome. I will drop the link for today's reference photo so you can all see it.
Here's today's reference photo. I've got it printed out. So this little scene is a very iconic New Zealand scene, just quite close to home. This is the Church of the Good Shepherd, and this is Lake Tekapo. And the lake is this color, this really opaque turquoise color. So it's very distinctive. And I don't know if you can see in the photo all the tourists. It's a very, very famous New Zealand spot. So that's what we're going to be doing today.
Cool. So everyone, if you're painting along, go ahead and grab your supplies. And can you tell us what materials we'll be using today?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I have my watercolor palette here with my paints on it. And I use tube paints. They're a mixture of Daniel Smith and my Mary. And I just squeeze the the paints onto my palette, and then I let them dry overnight, and then I can just fold up my palette and take it outside with me. So this is the palette that goes everywhere with me. I've got some watercolor brushes here, just a mixture. This is Skoda and Etcher brushes. And then these are the supplies that I take outside with me. So I'll be pretty much using, I mean, I take them outside, but I use them in my studio. I don't really change. When I come into the studio, the only thing I really change is bigger paper, bigger brushes, but everything else is pretty much, this is what we'll be using. So fountain pen with some permanent ink and some Posca and gel pen markers. And that's pretty, I keep it pretty simple. So not, water on the side, 2 big jars of water, and some paper towels to pick up any boo-boos, and my reference photo, ready to go.
Awesome.
And I've already done the pencil sketch, just because Maria keeps telling me we've only got an hour, and I didn't want you to, you know, have to sit and watch me draw and draw. I'm quite a slow sketcher, so I thought to do that. I did that yesterday. It's all ready to go. And what else have we got here? Oh, just some notes. I've got some notes, so I'll be going through those with you in a moment.
Awesome.
Are we ready to start? Is everyone ready to start?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So are you focused on the drawing now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. So this is the reference photo. I don't know if you can see it. I'm just going to move this away a little bit. This is the reference photo that I've got, and I have changed it a little bit in my drawing. And I'm not going to talk too much about composition today because we don't really have time to go into that in depth. We can do that when we've got more time, say in the mini workshop. But most of the compositional changes that I made for today was because I needed to show you certain things, not necessarily because it made the composition any better, just that if I'd done the church so tiny at this size, it's really difficult for you to see what I'm doing. So most of the changes were just so that I could get some points across more than, you know, making the perfect composition. I did want to leave this tree out because I find that really distracting. So I've actually folded my reference photo like that and got rid of the tree. And when I did that, I lost this mountain on the side here. So I have still included that mountain in my sketch. But this is how I always start. It was with quite a tidy, I'm quite a tidy painter, especially in watercolor. So I start with quite a tidy sketch. And when I'm painting outside, I don't bother to tape anything. Tape is a bit of a pain, so I just sometimes draw a little box, and I'll have rough edges and I don't really mind. And I've left a little gap here at the bottom because if I was painting outside, this is where I would write my little story or whatever I was going to do, you know, my impressions of the day. And what we're going to mostly focus on today is how to give your painting a sense of depth. So a lot of people, when they comment on my painting, say, oh, it's got such lovely depth. Well, actually, they're just some simple rules that you need to follow. And as long as you've got them in the back of your mind, you'll be amazed at the difference it makes, giving your painting a sense of depth. And I use the term aerial perspective. And I know some people use the term atmospheric perspective. It's the same thing. It's just that I was taught it as aerial perspective, and that's what stuck in my head. Atmospheric perspective is exactly the same thing.
Right.
So what we want to do is we've got a 3-dimensional landscape. Well, in this case, we're not actually outside. So someone's taken a photograph. This photograph's from Pixabay. Someone's taken a photograph and they've already made it flat. But in real life, you might be sitting somewhere and you've got this 3-dimensional landscape with all this depth, and you've got a 2-dimensional piece of paper. And what we want to do is create that impression of 3 dimensions on a flat surface. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of linear perspective, and that's got to do with, you know, mostly man-made structures. So how to make a man-made object 3-dimensional. Aerial perspective is how to make something more natural, like mountains or landscapes in general, how to give them a sense of depth. And I've written down these 6 things and I've put them here so that, you know, if you come back to the recording later, you can have a look at this. I've drawn a line here because composition is really important, also for giving a sense of depth, but it's not really an aerial perspective rule, and we won't really be covering it today. Right. But so I've just put it there as last thing. We're going to concentrate on these first 3, and I might mention these other 2 in passing, but I think these first 3, we'll concentrate on those 3 today. What you've got to sort of imagine is when you are looking at something that's got a great distance, there's a lot of, in the atmosphere itself, there's a lot of dust and water vapor and all sorts of particles that are in the air that create, I guess you could imagine it as a whole lot of screens, like, or maybe net curtains. So if you layer these net curtains over and over and over again, they create a screen between you and things that are really far away. So what it does is those screens change things as it goes further away. And things that are far away from you get cooler in color. So they become more blue. So that's the first thing. For things that are close to you will be warmer. And this rule, if you only follow this one rule, it immediately makes a massive difference. So that's the first thing I always think about. Things that are far away aren't as saturated in color, so they're paler. And as you get closer to you, things get darker. And the edges of things, if you can imagine, well, my eyesight's really bad, so I don't even have to imagine this one. Things that are very far away are very blurry. So soft edges in the background. And as you get closer to you, things get all nice and sharp and in focus. Not as much contrast in the background. And not as much detail. So save all your detail for in the foreground. And as I said, composition, we'll cover that in the mini workshop. That's a massive subject. So I'm going to concentrate on these 3 today, and I'll probably mention these 2 in passing. And forgive me if I just said again and again and again, but these concepts are kind of important, and you want them to become automatic. So I will probably say it, you know, again and again and again. Okay, I've got you focused again on my screen, so I'm just going to bring up my thing.
Yeah.
Are there any questions so far? I do tend to talk really fast and a lot, so bear with me.
We're good. We are good.
All right. So I'm going to start with the sky. I'm going to use this big brush, and even though it looks like a relatively small area, a big brush allows me to do things really fast. So I don't use this particular big brush when I'm painting outside because travel brushes don't come this big. But in the studio, I have a preference for this or bigger when I'm working this size. And the first thing I'm going to do is mix up the color for the sky. So you can just see my palette here. I'm going to use cobalt blue, one of my favorite blues. And I'm going to mix up a big pool of color. Can you see that? Yep.
Yes.
And I mixed up the colors first because I want to paint the sky really fast. So having the colors all ready to go is super handy. And always mix more than you think because it always takes up way more than you think. So there's the blue. And we need a sort of shadow color for the clouds as well.
Oh, we're doing the clouds too?
We're going to keep them very simple. I'm not going to fuss too much, but I am going to leave some white patches. So that same cobalt blue, I'm going to add a touch of brown. So a little bit of raw umber, burnt umber. And that immediately grays it down, but gives it a warmish gray and a touch of purple, just because, well, I like purple.
I like purple too.
So there's I'm going to warm that up a little bit. Okay. All right. And then, just dished something all over my palette. I'm going to wet the sky right from the top all the way down and over these mountains. Now we want the mountains to be far away, to look like they're far away. They are actually far away. To make them look like they're far away, we want to do this warm, cool thing.
Yep.
So the mountains in the back should have a cool tone. So if we paint the sky color, the blue, all over the mountains, we've immediately given them a cool tinge, and that will set them back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wet that. Right on the top. And then all the way over these back mountains, and not over the meadow or whatever that sort of field is. Not really a meadow. And if you are wetting your sky, if you look at it from the side, you should be able to see whether you've got it. You want to get a nice layer of water on there. Mm-hmm. And this is, Etch's sketchbooks are 100% cotton. So they take a heck of a lot of water. It's amazing. So you look at it from the side, you should be able to see whether you've left any gaps.
Yeah.
So you see me going in all directions just to make sure it's a nice even coat. And I'm not going to paint these big cumulus clouds. It's going to take too long. We want to focus on this area here, but I am going to at least reserve some whites to give the impression of clouds. Mm-hmm. Nice big brush. Take a deep breath. Here we go. And then once I've laid that first layer of color, there's less color now on my brush. I'm just going to drag that straight over the mountains. These trees are dark, so it doesn't really matter if I go over them a little bit. To give this guy a sense of depth, we want it to be darker at the top than at the bottom, because this sky is essentially the sky that's over the top of our heads. So it will be darker than the sky at the horizon. Mm-hmm. So a touch more, while it's still wet like this, a touch more of cobalt blue.
And you're working flat, right?
Normally I would work on an angle, but it doesn't film very well. So yes, normally I would have it for the sky, I would have it at maybe 30 to 40 degree angle, mm-hmm. But that's not so easy to film. The rest of the time I paint flat. So as soon as I painted the sky, I would have dropped it flat anyway. So we'll just work with it like this. So there I've got the impression of some clouds, and it's because the paper is wet, it's going to merge really, really nicely. I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to drop in some shadows. Just tidy up that edge a little bit. And I'm just going to let it do its thing, you know. It's going to move for a really long time, and it looks kind of like these starbursts now, mm-hmm. But those will soften out, and it'll look right. And it will trust it. It's going to look right in the moment.
I heard watercolor goes through a awkward teenager stage at some point.
Oh, every painting, regardless of medium, goes through an awkward teenager stage. You just have to, I guess watercolors especially, I think a lot of people think it's because you paint fast, they think the whole painting should finish fast. But actually what happens is you paint in these little bursts of speed, but the actual painting still has many layers of process to go through. So a lot of my students will get to a stage where they're like, oh, it's really ugly. And I would say to them, it's just not finished. You know, you still got another hour or so of work to do on it, just because it's not necessarily a fast medium. It's just that while your brush is on the paper, it's fast. All right, so I'm going to leave that to do its thing. And I don't normally dry the sky with a hairdryer because it's moving very slowly now, and it'll move for a long time. if I use the hairdryer now, it'll just stop that. And yeah, you lose that sort of spontaneity, the preciousness of what watercolor does.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pick up this funny rough edge here. And then while I'm waiting for this to dry, we can do the water.
Yeah, find something else to work on, right?
Exactly. Anything that's not touching while I'm waiting for that to dry. So some other time we can do nice fancy clouds. Now, this water is a super distinctive part of the scene. Lake Tekapo is filled with what they call glacial flour. So there's a glacier at the head of this lake that's created this silt that hangs suspended in the water. So it has this opaque turquoise color. It's really important to the scene. So yes, it looks odd when you paint it, but we should get it right. And for painting that water, I have an actual color on my palette that I bought especially for Tekapo and Lake Pukaki water. So this is cobalt teal, also Daniel Smith color. And I'm just going to add a bit of it to my cobalt blue. It's an opaque color. So I avoid it generally, but for this lake, yeah, it's just the biz.
Perfect.
Right. Now we want to do the same thing with the lake. We want to, even though it's, it's quite far away and we're standing on some bank, I don't know, like there must be some sort of bank that somebody's standing on here. I still want to create a sense of depth. So I want this here, this part of the lake, to be further away than this part of the lake. And the way I'm going to do that is that I'm going to make this slightly cooler in color and lighter. And as I come forward, I'm going to change to more of the cobalt blue because the cobalt blue is warmer than the teal color. And I'm going to go darker. Starting here, still with this nice big brush. When I come around to where the grasses are, I'm just going to feather it in to create a jagged edge around the grasses. And notice the size of the brush I'm using. It's still pretty big so that I can work nice and fast. And it's got an amazing point, so I can do that. Synthetic brushes they're amazing for sharp points. So I'm leaving a few little white highlights just to make it look like there's some ripples or something.
I was just about to ask that.
And there's a little bit of lake on this side. And now as I come towards the foreground, I'm going to slowly pick up a bit of the cobalt and bring that in so that it should bring it's a bit more warm in color. It should bring the front of the lake closer.
Aerial perspective.
Aerial perspective, that's right. So this warm, cool thing, wow, it's like magic. If you only have to remember one rule, that's the one I reckon you should stick with. Now it's still all nice and wet.
Yeah.
So I can come in and make that even more saturated. Just some streaks on the water. Water's flat, so keep your streaks flat. Of course, it's different if you had waves or if you were really close to the water, but we've got the water quite far away. And maybe some streaks of the tealy color. Let me know if I'm going too fast.
No, it's all clear on my side at least. If any other let us know. And if y'all have any questions, that's also please drop them on the chat. I had someone here celebrating that you're a tidy watercolor painter. So I think you found a kindred spirit.
It's funny because I also paint, well, I used to paint a lot in mixed media. When my studio looks like a nightmare. And when I pick up watercolors, everything just gets all tidy. So yeah, it's kind of perfect to have two different ways of painting. So that's the water done for the moment. And we're going to leave it like that. So
the streaks are so perfect.
yeah, you don't really, I mean, I like it if you go out the edges a little bit, and it probably will get a bit more untidy as we go, but I don't know, you don't really need the tape. This is your sketchbook. It's supposed to feel spontaneous.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the hairdryer now just to dry, because normally I would let it dry on its own, but we don't have really time. So I want to make sure that this is completely dry. So I'm just going to take it off the table, and bear with me while I make a little bit of noise.
So while Renee gets back, everyone, I am going to drop the link to Renee's mini workshop. So if you like what you're seeing and you want to learn more with Renee, go ahead and sign up for her mini workshop. It's on April 10th, and it's going to be super, super cool. Mini workshops are $5.50, and they're actually a steal for all of that you learn. You're going to learn Renee's tips on composition. You're going to have an hour and a half. And if you can't attend live for some reason, no problem. We will send you a recording. So it's always a great deal. So I'm dropping the link right now. And remember, mini workshops sell out. So grab your seat while you can.
Actually, I can show you which one we're going to do for the mini workshop.
Oh yeah, get a sneak peek, everyone.
So this is the scene that I painted on site last autumn. So when was it? April, so I date them. And it's my favorite peak near my home. It's called Black Peak, and it's got these really distinctive poplars and the willow trees all golden. So that's the scene that we will be painting in the mini workshop. And this one, we're going to talk a lot about composition. So we still got that aerial perspective, but we're going to add little people and ways of getting people to actually, getting your viewer to actually step into the painting. So that's the scene for the mini workshop.
See, because you're going to learn all that amazing things.
Yeah, we'll do trees, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome trees. Right, we're back. So everything's nice and dry now. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with these mountains. So I'm going to change to a slightly smaller brush. This is an etcher number 12. And I've still got my blue and my gray mix here. And what I always try to do when I'm painting is to, even though I have all these wonderful colors on my palette, although, I mean, they're pretty limited considering the number of colors you can get, I don't use all of the colors in one painting. Once I've made a decision, for instance, on the sky color, I used cobalt, I'll use that same blue again and again and again. And if I'd use burnt umber rather than sepia, for instance, I'll use burnt umber again and again and again. So I would ignore, the other browns so that I get a nice sense of consistency through my painting.
Yeah, that's a great tip to keep everything cohesive.
Yeah, you don't have to use all the colors all the time, even though it's tempting, because they're so pretty. So what we want to do is we want this mountain here that's at the back to be further away than this one, and this one to be further away than that one, and this one to be the one that's closest. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play with these two things, warm versus cool, and saturation. So the mountain that's the furthest away will be the coolest and the palest in color. And as we come forward, we're going to start adding slightly warmer colors and slightly darker colors. But remembering also that these are very far away, and we have to plan a little bit, because if we go too dark now, we won't be able to go dark enough when we get to here. So we're going to keep it kind of simple and pale here. This is not our main thing. It's to set the scene, but this is our main thing. We want to concentrate on that there. So using that same blue. Oh wait, we might as well use this one because we've already added the gray. So here's our grayish color. I'm going to just add a touch more purple. That's permanent violet. It's very strong, so I always only add a little bit of it. And starting here at the back, just having my paper towel handy in case I make any mistakes. I don't know if you can see how the clouds, because you've used more than one color instead of just Payne's gray, the colors are separated out, and it's a lot more interesting than if you just used grey from a tube. By mixing the colours, it's always way more interesting. So that's our first one, and I've left a few little gaps there showing through to maybe looks like, I don't know, snow or shiny rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then these mountains here have rocky tops and grassy bottoms.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds kind of rude, doesn't it? So we're going to use that same grey for the tops. And I'm following the direction that the slope goes with my brush strokes. So if the slope goes this way, I go that way with my brush stroke. And if the slope goes that way, leaving some gaps for some snow, whatever. And then as I come towards the bottom, I can add a touch more of the brown, but not still on the grayish side. I don't want it too warm. And by immediately this mountain comes in front of that one behind. Just that touch of warmth.
Yeah.
And because I've got the blue underneath, it dulls it down a little bit and sets it back. So that's the advantage of putting the sky color underneath. This one, the tops. I'm playing also with this, with the edges idea.
Huh?
So I'm not waiting for the ones to dry because I just want it all to be sort of hazy and blurry. So I'm not waiting for the back mountain to dry before I come to the front one. Mm-hmm. So they just blur into each other. Top of this one. Again, following the direction.
That's a great tip because you did that too in the water. So it's easy to remember.
What was that?
Following the direction of the slopes or like the water, because you also mentioned it there. So I think it's easy to remember.
That's right. And that's at the greyish top.
Yeah.
And we want this one to be slightly closer than that one. So a bit of the brown. And I'm going to add a warmer brown as well. This is raw sienna. Oops, that's a bit pale. Ooh, that's a bit dark. I'm working too fast. Time pressure. So that slightly warmer color again brings it in front of the one behind. And it's also slightly darker. So playing with the saturation. No questions from anybody.
Oh, we're all just mesmerized.
Blah, 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 blah. That's me.
You're explaining it really well. So I think that's why we don't have questions. And I'm mesmerized because I think you're explaining the process really well too.
So that's those ones. And then this one here is even closer to us.
Oh, we have a signed up for the mini workshop. Yay. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Yay.
So it's again got that sort of stony, rocky top.
Mm-hmm.
And I want this one to be in front of that one, so I'm going to use more of the raw sienna. And I could actually change to a burnt sienna as well, which is warmer than the burnt umber.
We have a comment here that says, keep blah blabbing. We love the
keep blah blabbing. Well, thank you. You guys, you know how to charm a girl.
Keep them coming.
Right. And that's how I would leave the mountains for the moment. So I've got a sense of recession, and it will dry lighter than it is right now. And because I've used the same colors as I used for the sky, there shouldn't be too much of a sudden whoa, what's that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then we're on to the meadow in the foreground, and I can use the same colors that I used for here, keeping them kind of pale, but because I don't have the blue undertone, they won't be as cool. So they should come forward in theory.
We have another sign up for the mini workshop.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you, people. So I watched a lot of the the Etcher live demos, but I've been able to see the chat. And today I can't see the chat. It's kind of weird.
On your eyes today. Your very, very dark eyes today.
So I'm just doing this shaping. I'll just go over the trees. That'll save me time.
And they'll be darker too anyways, right?
That's right. The trees are super dark. And I don't know if who's watched some Bob Ross movies. Everyone's watched them, surely. If we do this, then when we leave the gaps for the birds to fly through, then we've got the right color for the stuff that's behind. So you can see how this bit without that blue tone, it's quite a different color to that one there.
Yeah.
So, and maybe a bit of the, I really like burnt sienna. This area of New Zealand's super dry. So not if the ground's already stony, not much happening there. Right, now the edge of the church is really highlighted, so I'm going to shape around that really carefully. And again, the etcher brushes, the synthetic ones, have amazing points. So
yeah, check out those brushes, everyone.
Wow. Look how much paint they hold. It just goes and goes and goes. Amazing.
And these brushes are vegan friendly.
They are very important consideration for me. I like that. That's one of the main reasons why I changed to Etcher, actually, my sketchbooks and things. I want all my products to be vegan. Daniel Smith paints are vegan as well.
Yeah, let's take care of the environment.
Exactly.
Oh, we got another sign up. Yay!
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Oh, I'm looking forward to that because it's my favorite peak, Black Peak.
We are loving what you're doing, Renee. And it's great to hear you say it and see it happening live, like how it's all connected. Oh, and Alan also registered for more blah.
For what?
They've registered for the workshop for more blah.
More blah, okay. You'll get lots of blah, 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 blah. Right, so we have the whole background pretty much filled in, and all we'll have to do, I've left this little gap here. That's the beach, which is very, very light gray. And I don't want the meadow or whatever. I keep calling it a meadow. Paddock? I don't know. Huh? This stony patch. I don't want that to bleed into my beach, so I'm going to leave that for the moment. So my water is dry. How are we doing for time?
It is 6.
Only got 20 minutes left.
Sorry, it's 38 minutes past the hour.
Oh, okay. All right, so the next thing is we're going to do this grass here, and it's essentially the same thing as in the back here, but we're going to go way warmer in color, so and way more saturated. So I've worked with this brownie dulled mix now, and now I'm going to add in this. Oh, can you see that? No. I'm going to start using my yellows. So this is cadmium yellow hue. So look how much warmer that is than the other colors.
Mm-hmm.
Still with this big brush, because it's got a lovely point, I can just hold it. I hope you can actually see. When I paint like this, sometimes it's hard for you to see. I'm going to hold it quite upright, and I'm going to mark in the grasses.
Oh, yeah.
Does that look all right? Can you see?
Yeah.
Is the quality still all right? Yep.
Yep. We got another register for more blah workshop.
Oh dear, that sounds really boring. This is where now I'm getting up to all the little details. So this is Quinacridone Gold, another lovely warm color.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to make a little pathway. Now in the actual reference photo, there's a car park. I mean, how boring is that? We're going to definitely leave that out. And I'm just going to add a sort of grayish, let's make it a bit more gray, grayish brown pathway. And we're leaving out all the people as well.
Mhm.
You know, pretend the very unlikely scenario that we're there on our own. We can pretend it's the 80s or something before this place was famous. Actually, I think what made the church super famous is that I don't know if you're allowed to go inside anymore, but back in the day you were allowed to go inside. And on the lake side of the church, the back behind the altar is this amazing round window, and you can see right up the lake. I don't know how anybody in the congregation ever focuses on what the minister is saying, but it's just gorgeous. I'm not sure the public is allowed inside anymore, but yeah, it's pretty special. Bit of green.
Ooh, that's really dark.
Yep. So as we come to the foreground, this is where all the action happens. So lots of detail, super dark, lovely warm colors, lots of colors. And I'm happy to leave a little bit of sparkle as well. Like, it doesn't matter if there's little white gaps. They would just look like something shiny. This amazing color that I'm going to add now is called Dragon's Blood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it costs a fortune. No, I'm kidding. Not real dragon. This is vegan Dragon's Blood. It's a My Mary color. Amazing.
Oh, look how that bleeds. And now with the name, it's even more.
Yeah. That's the advantage of the cotton paper, is it stays wet for a long time, so you can just keep working, and it should all. Trying to see if I'm going to finish this.
Oh, I love how it's all coming together.
I don't, just in case anyone's really worried, I don't normally work this fast. You know, I would normally have a sketch like this would normally take me a couple of hours and not just one. So don't panic if you think, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to do that? Because, yeah, I don't normally do it this fast, and I did practice yesterday. Now, what I'm going to do with the grasses, I'm just going to take my mechanical pencil, and I'm going to push the lead, the pencil part in. So I've just got this point, and I'm going to scratch into the grasses, and I can drag them out and get way finer marks than I would be able to if the paint is still wet, than I would be able to do with a brush, particularly when I'm painting outside. When you're painting outside, you're not going to fuss with tiny, 0-0 brush. So I find this scratching thing really works.
I'm amazed that that's a thing.
I don't know. Well, a lot of brushes have a sharp point on the back just for that. Yeah, for scratching in.
Wow, I did not know that.
And it's not so obvious now, but when it dries, you'll be able to see what happens is that the pigment moves into the scratch marks, and you'll be able to see all this lovely detail. Okay, I'm going to just dry it again because I want to come back and do these trees. And this is
go for it.
So Maria's going to talk to you while I make a noise.
Yeah, I actually am going to talk to you about our survey. I just want to remind you all to sign up. What am I saying? Fill out our survey so we can make sure to bring you all the best content every single time. So if you have any suggestions for artists, if you want to see something and a different technique, anything you'd like, please fill out our survey. We do read every single comment. So go ahead and leave us your comments there so we can make sure to get you the best content. And also, if you're part of an organization and you want a private workshop, you can also contact us at Etcher Lab, and we'll get back to you with more information. And Renee's back.
Right, I'm going to do these trees. Just keeping an eye on. Oh, we've still got 15 minutes. We're okay-ish.
We're good.
We're good. These pine trees to be fairly dark, but again, thinking that they're in the background, so I don't want them to be dark, and I want them to be on the bluish side. I'm going to add a touch of Payne's Grey just to dull them down a little bit. And the same idea with the clouds. If you mix if you mix colors together and you work really wet, they separate out on the page and it'll look way more interesting than if you just took a green from the tube or a gray from the tube.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
Okay. So again, holding my brush fairly upright, and it's got this lovely springy point, oops, which is just about to make a blob paint. I'm just going to flick in the pine trees. And I want them to be all different heights and in groupings as well, even though they're quite regular in the photograph. I'm the artist, so I can play with that a bit. So some of them tall, some of them wide, maybe 3 together, then 4 together, then 1 on its own. And then leaving some gaps so the birds can fly through. I think I'll just leave these trees for the moment because I don't know if I'll come back to them if we've got time. And obviously I will do them, even if I might do them later when you guys aren't watching. Careful shaping around the roof of the church. So this color, because I've added green to it, is way warmer than the hills in the background. So it definitely puts the trees in front of those hills and sets the hills back. And I'm going to make them darker, even darker, to bring them even more forward. Plus, they're a lovely counterpoint to shape around the church, because one of the things we want to do is to have contrast. So if we have a nice light roof color with the dark trees behind, then that should make the focal point really stand out. I'm trying to vary the heights of my trees a little bit.
We have a question if you list the colors of your palette on your website.
I do. On my blog, I have a tips and techniques section, and all my materials are listed there. Every color on my palette, the brushes I use, sketchbooks, everything's listed on there. Paper, the whole lot. So if you just go to my website and click on blog, and then click on tips and techniques, everything's there. I try to keep it up to date as well, although I don't change my colors very much, because every time you add a new color to your palette, you have to learn what it does. So I tend to use the same colors year after year.
And we wanted a refresher on what colors you use for the trees.
The trees, I used the same bluish gray mix that I had for the clouds. And to that, I added sap green and a touch of Payne's gray, just to dull it down a bit. And now I'm adding way more Payne's gray to the same mix to drop in some shadows, just in some areas, mostly along the bottom. The sun is coming from this side, so I want to sort of where I imagine the left-hand sides of the trees to be, and mostly along the bottoms.
I dropped the link to Renee's blog on the chat, so you can find it there.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
Yes, I was actually.
That tree's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe give him some friends here. He's not all alone. Okay. Next is our church. And for that, I'm going to swap to a tinier brush. This is a number 3. And even though it's tiny, it's still very long, so it holds a lot of pigment. And I want to keep this kind of light, so just using these same brownish mixes that I've got down here. Now, to create the impression of stonework, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this first base layer of wherever the stonework is, so not the roof. And then I'm going to just drop in some other colors while it's still wet. And I'm not going to paint every brick or stone. I'm just going to give it the impression that there's a roughness to it. So maybe a touch more of the sienna and a touch more of the brown. It's so tiny, we don't have to do too much, but just a few marks just to make sure that it's not a uniform color. And I think buildings always benefit from being slightly darker at the bottom to give them a sense of weight, and also because the sun is up here, the bottom of the building is usually in the shadow. So to settle it into the ground, I usually just touch a little bit of touch of darkness at the bottom, make it feel like it's actually sitting on the ground and not just floating there. A little bit of negative painting around the grasses that I've already put in. And then I'm going to have to use the hairdryer again. So just to do, so I can do the roof next.
I'm dropping the link for Renee's mini workshop again in case you didn't see it. It is $5.50 and it's going to be amazing, as you can already tell from this amazing live demo. It is on April 10th and you get the mini workshop live and then you get the recording afterwards. So it's a great, great deal.
Now for the roof, I'm changing to a flat brush because what I want to do is the roof, I think that, I can't really tell in the photograph, but I think the roof is made out of tiles. So what I want to do is I want it to look shiny. So I'm going to leave some white gaps when I paint that. And again, I used cobalt blue before, so I'm going to use it again. Slightly grey it down a bit. And with the flat brush, I can actually follow the direction of the tiles just by using it on its edge like that.
Oh, yeah.
And by leaving little bits of white in, it looks shiny like it is in real life. And also I've got this amazing counter change between those dark trees and this white roof. So for your focal point, you've got your darkest dark next to your lightest light. And that should, your eyes should go straight there.
Contrast.
Contrast, that's right. We didn't, I said I wouldn't get there, but we are covering point number 4. And a little bit of, it's a little bit darker here. Okay, we've only got 7 minutes, so I'm thinking, what should I show you? What's the main thing to show you in 7 minutes? Well, we have to finish the church. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? With my brush gone. So we have to put some shadows on the church. So that's on this side and on the little sides of, I don't know what these things are, some sort of like reinforcement. So again, oh wait, I'm going to keep the shadow color warm. So I've kind of got my burnt umber here, touch of the cobalt. So again, just copying the colors that I've used before. There we go. And we got a shadow underneath this roof. And these little reinforcing buttresses. I love painting the shadows because that's when it suddenly all comes together, you know. So don't be scared. A lot of people are scared to paint the shadows because it's, you know, they're dark and they can be daunting, but they make all the difference to a painting. So go on, be brave, pop them in.
Yeah. That shadow has made a huge difference.
Exactly. What was flat before is now And there should be, there should be shadows like underneath the trees here as well. I know, these trees also have shadows. If I painted them later, I'd put some shadows in there. Thinking that the sun is coming from that side, so making sure you get your shadows all in the same direction. And maybe some really darkish shadows at the bottom of the bushes and things like that.
We got more sign-ups to your mini workshop.
Awesome. I won't hopefully have to work this fast. Now, remembering that we want everything that's here in the front to have way more detail, way more saturation than everything at the back. So I'm going to be focusing a lot on making this really dark. And it's the darks that make your painting really pop. So try and be brave and, add them in. There's a sap green. I love sap green. One of my go-to colors. Why mix a green when you can just take it out of the tube?
There you go.
And I think I've got a moment. Oh, I still got this color. I'm going to.
We still got 5-10 more minutes.
Okay. Just because it's bothering me not having these trees done.
Yeah. No, don't worry. Take your time. We got 5 to 10 more minutes. We're good.
Okay.
You're going to need a bucket of chamomile after this.
I will. Well, it's lunchtime here, so. It's not, unfortunately, GMT time, but we can. It's lunchtime on Saturday, so you could argue that it could even be 8 o'clock. Okay, that looks better to me. Right, we're pretty much done. Okay, bear with me. I want to just put some marks here to give these hills some form.
Yep.
So I'm going to keep it, just going to mix up this all together. Add a touch of blue to grey it down. It's gone a bit green because my palette's nice and dirty now. Okay, there we go. And I just want to put a little bit of form on these mountains here. And I'm going to keep it very light and just follow again that direction that the slopes actually went. So I've just put in some gullies and things like that. And not too much. And I'm going to soften a lot of those edges. So I clean my brush and I dry it on my paper towel, and I'm just going to soften some of those edges. Not all of them, but just remembering that things in the back, we don't want suddenly a whole lot of contrast or a whole lot of sharp edges there. Mm-hmm. And then as I go further back, I'm just going to have that slightly lighter and then nothing on that back one. By now I'm in such a hurry, I'm not even looking at my reference photo anymore, but just to give them a little bit of form. And this one goes this way.
Yep.
Okay. I don't want too much to be happening in the background, but I also just don't want it to look like you've used a coloring in book. Oh, we've forgotten this beach. Let's put that in. And then that is the watercolor done. And the final step is we're going to add ink on top of that. So I need to make sure it's completely dry. Yep. And I know we've only got 1 minute left, but bear with me.
No.
Give me 5. I'll finish it up. All right, good.
You're good. And I wanted to remind everyone that if you take a picture and that you're attending one of our workshops or live demos, or if you try and use Renee's techniques to make something of your own, then please tag us on Facebook and Instagram when you're posting the art that you made. or, you know, even your pictures with the hashtag Etcher Mini Workshop. And every month we are doing a raffle, and you get $50 worth on Etcher products if you win it. So tag us, tag away.
Okay. So my preference with pen work is to work with a fountain pen, just because I found them actually cheaper. Then I go through felt tip pens like crazy. I push too hard and I wear them out. So for me, a fountain pen is awesome, and you can just refill it. And I use permanent ink, so I don't have to worry about painting over it. And this has got a very dark brown ink in it, so not black. And all I want to do with the ink is to sharpen up some areas, the areas that are in the shadow. So I'm not going to put anything where there's highlights, but I'm going to mark in all the shadow areas. I don't want it to look like I've just outlined everything.
Right, because that would be the danger.
Yeah, that's right. You know, that would be just like, well, then you might as well just have traced a drawing and just gone from there. So just on the shadow sides, and maybe just to give a broken line to show that this is got some stonework.
They're asking for the nib size.
This is an extra fine, but it's quite an old nib, so it's got quite soft. So I'd say it's more like a fine nib now. And I have 3 different fountain pens. This one is got dark brown ink that I mixed my own brown ink, and it's got an extra fine nib. Then I have one with black ink. It's got a fine nib. And I have one with yellow ochre ink that's got a broad nib. So I can use all of those. So again, the area, our focal point needs to have the darkest darks.
Yeah.
So by concentrating on putting the ink work there, we've suddenly got the darkest darks. Just some marks. Maybe a few marks in the roof. And then I would put maybe a few grasses and things in, some rocks and stuff.
So no touching the background.
And well, I mean, I could put in a few, but very little. Mostly I keep it around the man-made structure, but you could put in some dead trunks and things like that, but nothing in the background because we don't want to sharpen that up. We want the background to be all nice soft edges and the foreground to have the hard edges.
Yeah.
And I start off quite light, and I might keep going and going once I get more confident. You know, I can go quite dark in some areas. And then I have other pens as well, different colors. But the 2 white ones, the gel pen for some fine grasses. It works particularly well if you've got a dark area. And maybe some trunks, dead trunks at the back here. And then the Posca marker is slightly fatter. Always shake it with the lid on. Won't go everywhere. And that I can use just to sharpen up the highlight side.
Yeah, contrast.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, I really like giving impressions of shiny things. And I could spend ages on this part, you know, really just doing all sorts of little details. I've got, you know, a yellow one.
Would you add any shiny bits to the water, for example?
Oh, yes, that's a good point. Would. So I have an old credit card, and I could add again, mostly in the foreground. And try and keep them random if you can. Take some of them off the edge just to add some sparkle. And what I'll do is I'm going to fuss over this a little bit more when you guys aren't here. And I'll pop the finished one on Instagram so that you can see what it looked like.
And I'll drop the link to Renee's Instagram on the chat.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost there. There's just, there's some things I would like to tidy. Like I haven't got the little rocks, and I would like to add a few more darks maybe in there. Okay, the church's cross as well. But I think it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll hold it up. Hold it up so that you guys can see it.
So thank you everyone for coming today.
You were so quiet. I was expecting questions and questions.
No, I mean,
you didn't even start talking so much.
You were really clear. So that's why no one had questions, because it all makes so much sense. So that's where the magic happens, I think. So I'll stop spotlighting the image so they can see our faces again. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We are back. So thank you so much, Renee, for this demo. This was really, really great. So thank you so much. I'm seeing very great comments on the chat of people that learned so much from you today, and from all your tips, and from the way that you explained it. So again, everyone, if you want to learn more, sign up for Renee's mini workshop. I'm sure it's going to sell out. Wow. So go grab your seat while you can. And thank you again, Renee, for this. This was amazing. If y'all want to come for another live demo, we have one tomorrow. It is with, hang on, I forgot the name. Yes, Renata Tot, and you're going to be learning how to paint elegant flowers with ink and watercolor. So that will be tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST. And thank you so much for joining us today for Renee.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Echa. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed it.
No, thank you so much. And so sign up for Renee's mini workshop, fill out our survey, and we will see you again next time. And here are the links on the chat again. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day or night. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
And we are out.